So as we know, we are already dealing with module 2, which is about the Delta Lake and Delta Lake concepts. And as part of that, we are in a journey of understanding the Delta tables and their concepts. So yeah, before proceeding to the further like Delta table options, like we will discuss in the further videos, like how to create a like a unmanaged table, that is external tables, right? So where our intention will be kind of to mount or to kind of use the mounted external source. So if you are using external source, so that is mostly called as the unmanaged tables for the data in the Databricks. So before actually doing that, I mean creating those external tables or unmanaged tables in Databricks, first before that we need to understand what is the mounting. So mounting is nothing but we are kind of establishing the connectivity, like secured connectivity between the Databricks and the external location. So this mounting is specific. We will be discussing about how do we mount Databricks workspace, right, to the Azure Blob storage and ADLS. So when we say ADLS, we are talking about Gen2. So Gen1 is almost kind of a deprecated, and so Microsoft is going to decommission. So that's why we are considering Gen2 here. So like for both of these storage, which are external storage, right? So Databricks is having its own file system like a DBFS. So that is the internal file system, what we call. But if you want to store your tables or Delta tables in the external locations, so then we use the concept of external location, and to read and write to the external location, so we need to establish connectivity between like Databricks and this storage location, so that we call it as a mounting. And please note that mounting is a one-time activity. So if you kind of mount it, so it will be there till you kind of unmount it, right? So or you will recreate your workspace, so that mounting will still be there. So even your cluster will go down, mounting will not come down. So mounting, once you create a mounting, so it will be there throughout the life cycle of the Databricks workspace, right? It is not specific to the cluster workspace, like a life cycle. So with that understanding, let us proceed. Before proceeding, if you are new to this channel and haven't yet subscribed for this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. So Databricks, why we are using Databricks, that we will see in detail in the, I mean, we have already understood the reason, but how do we do that? We will understand in detail in the demo part in the just in couple of seconds. But what are the steps, right? What do we need to kind of mount the ADLS and Blob storages with the Databricks? So you need a valid Azure subscription, because both ADLS and Blob are what we are talking is comes in Azure subscription only. And even data like Gen2 or Blob storage we need here, accounts we need, and Databricks workspace we need, right? So because that's where we mount the location, mount the these locations, right? And Key Vault, to kind of create like secrets, so we have to keep the secrets in the Key Vault. So that's the best practice. So we will understand about the how do we use that Key Vault here. And also there is a app registration, so where we have to register the app, so that we will see these steps, right? But these are the steps, and along with this we also need to have a Databricks scope. So that is one additional point. So we also need to have a Databricks scope. So you understood, right? Like to kind of mount the Databricks to the ADLS Blob, we have to follow these steps as a prerequisite. So now let's get started with the demo. So as a first prerequisite, we have a Databricks workspace here, right? And we don't have any, Databricks workspace is there, and Azure subscription is there. And the next step is definitely to create the like a storage accounts, right? So I have created a two storage account. If you see here, so one storage account, what we call BLB, the data channel, this is the blob storage, okay? And the another storage that we are talking is the data lake storage. So this is data lake storage, so data lake Gen2. So now that we have seen the storage account, right? Like so the intention here is to create a create the mount point on this storage account, which is the ADLS Gen2. So to start with, what is the steps? We will see one by one here. So the first step definitely is creating the Azure Active Directory, like app registration for Azure Active Directory, right? So if you go to the app registrations, and if you don't have an app registration, you need to create a new app registration. Just click on new app registration and just give the app name and just register it. So once you register it, you will see the app something like this. Okay, so why are we doing this? Is so the we need to understand this. So the authentication or the authorization authentication will happen using this app registration. That means between your Databricks and your data lake storage, so this will act as a bridge of the connection, right? So when you create an app registration, please note that it will create a service principal at the background. That means it will create like a account, service principal account, so where the authentication will be based on that service principal, or I mean we can call it as the app registration. So whenever it app registration, it will definitely create a service principal. So when we create app registration, what is the next step, right? So once the app registration is done, so you have to go to the certifications and secrets here, right? And you have to generate the certifications here. I mean, once you create an app, right, definitely you will have this, you need to note down the client ID and the tenant ID. So whenever you create an app, so these two details are important, client ID and tenant ID. So one more thing is important for us, that is a secret. So that we are going to generate here. So that will not come by default. We have to create that secret. And once you click on create, so it can give the expiration like whatever months you need. And once you create that, you will get the value and secret ID, but the value is important, which is actually the secret. So you have to note that down. Okay, so basically please keep this in mind. This value what we were having, this is a secret. Okay, and in the overview what you are seeing is a client ID and tenant ID. These three are the important things. You have to note that down for the further reference, and we will show you how this will be useful in the when we are doing actual mounting. Okay, so now that we have these three things, right, client ID, tenant ID, and the secret of the app registration that we have done. Okay, so we have to kind of go to our data lake. Okay, because we have to provide access okay, to this app, right? So this is the app, so this has to be provided access. I mean, like our storage account, we have to go to the storage account, and inside the storage account, which is ADLS Gen2, there is an option of access control. So you have to go to the access control and click on add, and there is a add role assignment. Okay, and you have to kind of search storage account contributor. So contributor is the highest level of role that you'll be giving, and just click on, and then keep the things as default. And here it is important. So what you are doing here is you are assigning a contributor role for the app that you have created. That means if you are kind of connecting to this app, okay, by any means, okay, that means you will get access to the data lake storage. Okay, that's the whole intention here. Like, and if you here you have to give your app registration, like whatever the app registration you have done, right? This is the app, your app, right? So if you give the app name here, so it will bring up the app. So you can select this. Okay, and once you select, you can click on next and submit it. So once you kind of submit it, what will happen is your app is registered with the storage account. That means your app has got access to this storage account. So now, right, so now we can directly connect to the ADLS app registration using our Databricks, using the client ID, secret, and tenant ID. But that is not a recommended approach, because if you're just storing, I mean, you're just putting them in a code, so it will be more visible, right? So that's the reason we use a key vault to securely store them. So how do we store these three details in the key vault? So key vault, as you know, it is in Azure, we use it for storing the secrets, keys as a vaulted kind of a format. Like if you see now, what we have to do is we have to add this client ID and client secret and tenant ID. Three things as we have noted, right, in the previous step when we are creating app registration. Those app registration details, client ID, client secret, and tenant ID, we have to kind of provide here. Okay, so if we are not created, we need to create like this. So just go here, give some name, okay, and new some description, and then secret is where you have to fill the values, like for whatever you have noted down, right? So those value you have to fill and create client ID, client secret, tenant ID in a similar way. Okay, so once these three are created, right, so we will finally go back to the Databricks. So before actually kind of jumping to the creation of the mount point, right? So mount point, to do that, like first Databricks has to should be able to access the key vault, right? So to do that, we will do something called as a scoping, Databricks scope. So how do we create a Databricks scope? Is it's very simple. So just check whatever you see when you log into Databricks, whatever you see the from HTTPS to .NET, right? So just bring that as it is, and then like add a hash and secret slash create scope. Just make sure it is a case sensitive. So just make sure it is proper value. Okay, and then when you click on enter, basically it is a secrets. It's not secret. So if you just miss a small thing, so you should be very careful here. So this is a part you have to paste it. So this will be your URL. Okay, from till .NET, and after that you have a hash and then secrets slash create scope. So once you click on enter, you'll be able to navigate to the screen where it shows the create scope, secret scope. So this name is important. I mean, so you tend to forget this name, so just keep it handy. So you can give any secret name here, and just keep it as creator for now. Okay, if you are, there are multiple users, you can select that. But what do you select here, right? DNS name, key vault. So here we have to give the Azure key vault details. So where we will get the details? So we have to go to the key vaults, and if you go to the overview, so better if you go to the properties, right, you'll be able to see the details here. So this is a key vault URI. So this key vault URI you have to copy and paste it here, okay, as it is. And also we have a resource ID. So this resource ID we have to copy and paste it here, right? So once you do this and you give some name here, right, so it will be able to we'll be able to create this. Just a moment. Yeah, so you'll be able to create the scope. So once you successfully create a scope, right, we can validate that scope using a command. Okay, so that we will see here. So this is the command which we will use for kind of validating the scope. If you see dbutils.secrets.list, if you can execute this and you give your scope name here, and with this, if your scope has been successfully created, it should give all the keys which you have created in the key vault. So as you can see, it has given all the keys. So if you can go back and see in the key vault, you have created all these secrets. So these secrets it is able to list. That means you are the scoping, the creation of scope has been completed. So once you create a scope, right, so the next step, the final step, is where you have to work with this piece of code. So what this piece of code means, like let us take one by one. Account name is nothing but your ADLS Gen2 account name, and ADLS container. So the container inside the data lake, right? So if you go to the data lake and you have the containers here, so you should create a container if there is no container. So there is a container here. So this container name I'm giving here, okay, and also the account name is this one, ADLS Gen2 the data lake, right? So data channel. So that is my account name, and the ADLS folder name. Inside there is a TMP folder. So that same TMP folder I'm giving here. And also you can see a mount point. So this is anything you can give, any mount point name you can give. So it is like if you have worked with a Linux or kind of a Unix operating system, you might have already worked on mount points. So it is very similar to that. You are mounting the location and you are giving some your own name for that location, right? And it should start with /mnt. So this is important, and after that you can give any folder name of your choice. So these are the details, and application ID, authentication key, and tenant ID. So these three details are very simple that you are getting from the key vault. So you are using a scope and getting it from the keys. So basically you have to pass through the scope. So the scope acts as a bridge between the Databricks and the key vault. So you have to pass through that scope and get the keys. Once you get the keys, you are assigning to this value. So now we have client ID, secret, and tenant ID. And endpoint, you can keep it as it is. So it is there is nothing change here. I mean, it is a Microsoft like standard endpoint. And also the source, you can see you can keep it as it is. And the important thing here is ABFSS. So if you are using ADLS Gen 1, it will be like ADL or something. Since we are using ADLS Gen 2, so this is important, ABFSS, and this exactly the format you can give here, and that will become your source. And once you kind of construct all these variables, you will finally construct this configuration JSON, where you will give all these details as it is, which are like more configurations. Okay, and finally, if there is no mount point already existing that you are checking here, okay, in the if condition, if not exist, so you will create a mount point. Once you execute this, just because of interest of time, so it will take some time. So I've already executed this, and if you see, if I list the mount points, right, it should be able to list the mount points. As you can see, it has listed the mount points. The mount point I have created here, and if you just give this mount point name, it will be able to give what is inside. So inside this mount point, as you can go back, so I have created a mount point on this container and in this temp, right? So inside temp, it is showing that the temp2 directory is there. So the mount point is created on this folder, temp folder. So whatever you do operation, this will be a temp folder acts as a root folder, as you can see here. So temp folder will be root, and whatever if you're displaying whatever inside this temp folder will be, it will be able to list. If you add one more file, that file also will get listed. Okay, so that's how you list. I mean, basically the mounting works. So now that we have successfully able to mount Databricks with ADLS storage location, so as we will also see how to mount the blob storage. So as we have seen, we have used the app registration. I mean, in between as authentication, right, between the Databricks and the ADLS, we have used the authentication kind of a protocol as app registration. So I would call it as a protocol because it acts as a bridge, right? So it acts as like a bridge between the connections of these two. But when we talk about a blob storage, so we want to show you the approach how we want to mount the blob storage. So we will use the shared access signature. So using this shared access signature, we can mount the blob storage, which is the most recommended way to mount the blob storage. So let us see how to do that. So if you kind of navigate to the shared access signature in your blob storage account, right? So click, just to select all these allowed resource, service, container, and object. Just select these, and once you do that, there is the option of generate SaaS connection string. So once you do that, so you will be able to successfully generate the SaaS connection strings here, and you can get the blob service SaaS URL. So you can copy this URL, okay, and then we can place that in the secret. So we can directly give that in the code, okay, but we want to go through the key vault and go through the secret process, right? So that is where we want to store it in a key vault and then refer it. Okay, so this is the key name that we are storing, and this is the actual value. Okay, and then we will create this. So once we create this, as you can see, SaaS key, I'm directly referring this. So we can directly refer it like this, or you can use via the scope that we have, I mean the key that we have created using a scope, right? So basically the key that we have created is blob SaaS key. So once we kind of execute this code, right? So here we are using a Scala code. So just for a change to show like how can we use Scala as for the mounting, right? So you can use Python also. Similarly, you can convert this to code to Python and use it. But we are using Scala here, and we are declaring all these variables. And if you compare this with what we have done with the data lake, right? So you can better understand it. So in the data lake, we have used these three authentication mechanism, because there we have used app registration, and app registration application ID is there, application key is there, tenant ID is there. So using all these details, we were able to mount. But here we are not using the app registration, we are just using a SaaS key. So that is the only what you say the secret value that we'll be using, that which acts as a I mean authentication mechanism here. And this SAS key, with this SAS key, you can see we will provide this SAS key here uh, in the configuration. And this is important here. If you compare with the ADLS, there it is a ABFSS for ADLS Gen 2, right? But for Blob, it will be referred as WABS. Okay, and you give this all this the container name at the rate, and then this URL, right? And so with this, we will be these configurations, which SAS key is very important. So it will create the container. I mean, it will create a mount point to that blob container, and with that particular folder. And if you see, go back and see the blob storage, right? So this is the blob storage, and this is the demo is a container. Inside demo container, so demo container acts as a here demo container itself acts as a parent or root folder. Okay, and whatever there inside this container, once we kind of display this container, I mean the mount point, it will display that. As you can see, there is a JPEG image that we have uploaded in the container, and it will display as it is. Okay, so hope you are able to kind of understand how are we kind of mounting both ADLS data lake Gen 2, Azure Data Lake Gen 2, and blob storage, Azure Blob storage use in the Databricks workspace. And basically this is a prerequisite. So, and you do this for one time before kind of using any external storage. Before interacting with any external storage, we should do this. And also it's important to understand the difference of the steps that we use for Data Lake Gen 2 and blob storage. So there is a difference, right? So it is not the same way. So hope this was useful. Thanks for watching.